Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, albeit the home brewery a few more times than the away brewery, who only featured for the first time quite recently. But when it comes to these breweries, I would say that they're both best known for their different kinds of IPAs. The home brewery in particular for their New England hazies, but these two breweries actually do a lot of collaborations together, and they'll choose a name for a beer, they'll choose a style, and they'll both release slightly different versions of it at the same time. So this particular one that we're going to have a look at today is the third instance in which they've done that, and you will see me review the complementary beer, I guess you could say, from the other brewery in a few videos' time. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But I've heard very good things about both of these beers, and I think it'll be really fun to try them for you here on the channel as well. So yeah, the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had a number of times before from the home brewery. I don't think we've had it from the away brewery yet, but that is something that we will fix, and this is supposed to be really good. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Shizuoka Prefecture, which is a bit to the southwest of Tokyo. To the Mount Fuji region, and in particular we are going to go, or to be specific, we are going to go to the city of Mochimune, which is just to the southwest of Shizuoka City. That means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful West Coast Brewing. This particular beer is called Bird of Paradise. It comes in at 8.5% ABV. This one is a New England hazy, imperial double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's brewed in collaboration with Inkhorn Brewing, who are from Toshima in Tokyo. So there is another Bird of Paradise beer which has a different hop profile that was released by Inkhorn Brewing, and that one will appear around the same time as this review. I'm not sure exactly what order we're going to put these reviews in, but this is the first one that I'm filming actually. But yeah, always cool to return to West Coast Brewing, and Inkhorn are very, very damn good as well, and we've got a couple of beers to take a look at from them this time around, which I'm excited for. But yeah, this is yet another beer that I picked up at liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi Maichi here in Osaka. Lovely little beer shop owned by Koji, and run as well by his daughter Rika in Koji's grandfather's old soy sauce factory. He's always got a great selection of Japanese beers and a number of Belgians and Germans and Americans and things like that. So definitely somewhere that you need to check out if you get the chance. So yeah, I'll put the link to their Facebook page in the video description below, but they supply the majority of the Japanese craft beers that I review here on the channel. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. The Bird of Paradise, an 8.5% New England Hazy IPA from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka, and Inkhorn Brewing in Toshima, Tokyo. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from West Coast Brewing and from Inkhorn Brewing, and there will no doubt be more added to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, and yeah, we will be adding more to that. So yeah, keep your eyes on all of those things. Some really interesting things on the channel these days. But let's go on and chat a little bit about West Coast Brewing, since they are the home brewery in this instance. So West Coast Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Mochimune in Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan, which is right next to the legendary Mount Fuji. But this brewery was founded back in 2019 by Derek Baston, who's originally from Seattle in Washington in the US Pacific Northwest, and he had previously worked as an architect. So Derek originally came to Shizuoka back in 2003, and he would often visit different breweries during his trips home. And he said that he'd always been inspired by the craftsmanship that went into the West Coast American beers, and he wanted to bring that to Japan because he felt there weren't many doing this at the time. But apparently the idea to found his own brewery can be traced back to 2014 when he designed the Shizuoka distillery for Gaia Flow, and this was his first real look inside the brewing and distilling world, and it inspired him to go and visit other breweries and distilleries and talk to insiders in the industry. And apparently this made the whole process of starting his own brewery a little less daunting. So he founded a bar in Shizuoka called 12 to test the water and see if the beers he wanted to brew would be a hit, and he found very quickly that they were and that they would sell. So this prompted him to go down to go on to the brewing side of things, and so he found a premises in an abandoned tuna factory in the Mochimune marina, and then renovated it and converted it into a brewery. But this brewery is equipped with a 10 BBL system, which is around 1600 litres per brew, and they've got 10 fermentation vessels and 2 bright beer tanks, and they produce between 12 to 20,000 litres of beer per month. And there's 3 brewers on the team. This is Satoshi Niwa, who's from Japan, who is the brewing manager. Then they've got Cedric Mel, who's from France, and also Grant Scholler, who's from the US. But the brewery's mascot is this guy here, the Hop Dude, who is quite big on this label, I have to say, compared to some of the other ones. But yeah, the Hop Dude is their mascot, and he is designed by Simon Henshaw, who I believe is from Manchester in the US. I think he's done quite a few interesting things, because that's a name that I recognise. But over the first few years, they've leaned mainly towards producing different kinds of IPAs, but they're also in the process of establishing a barrel program, and I've noticed as well that they've been releasing a good few lagers recently, which I need to have a little look at. So keep your eyes peeled for those reviews. I can actually get West Coast Brewing in City Super over in Hong Kong, so we'll see about getting some of those videos. But they've also been opening up a number of bars and tap rooms recently. So they've got Bao, which is a gyoza restaurant, 12, which is a kind of izakaya these days, also number 3, which is their bottle shop, and you'll find all of these in Shizuoka City. They've got the Oasis bar in Hamamatsu, and then there's Umeda 1, which is a bar, and Dark Lab here in Osaka as well. So I do need to go and check those places out. They would be quite fun actually. But as of February 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 325 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to increase that number as time goes on. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about West Coast Brewing. So if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on Instagram and things like that, and you keep up to date with the latest goings on, and you can check out the playlist of beers that you can check out the other reviews that I've done from these guys thus far as well. But yeah, let's go up to Tokyo now and talk a little bit about Inkhorn Brewing. So Inkhorn Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Toshima in Tokyo, and the main man behind this company is Shun Nakade, who is originally from Koto Ward in Tokyo, and he founded the company along with his wife Amy Holdsworth, who's from Connecticut in the US. So apparently Shun's parents were very into kind of fine food and drink, and this rubbed off on him somewhat. But he attended high school in Oregon in the US and then moved to Seattle to study music theory and psychology. And it was during his time in Seattle that he discovered craft beer, although he says that at the time he didn't recognize it as being such a specialized thing. But when he returned to Japan, he simply wondered why there weren't beers that were similar to what he'd been drinking in America. So he soon started frequenting bars that sold German and Belgian beers, and during the 2010s he worked in administration as a translator and interpreter, but during this time he was also trying his hand at home brewing. So in 2018 he became involved in the launch of a brew club called Pitman's in Koto, and it was here that he had his first opportunity to brew commercially. And after a while he was left to his own devices, and he also helped brew at Choshi Beer and Tsukuba Brewery as well at different points. But by 2020 he had decided that he wanted to open his own project, and he started travelling around and collaborating with other breweries until he opened his own space in 2021. So the name Inkhorn is actually a reference to the animal horn inkwells that were popularly used by scholars in Europe during the 16th and 17th century. So Shun says that he felt these were a source of inspiration because the ink transforms into words, and the scholars who used these inkhorns were often debating using foreign words in English, and so he kind of feels that he's bringing foreign brewing culture into Japan and sharing it. So he just liked this name Inkhorn for that kind of reason. But the taproom space has been designed by Amy, who has a passion for birds and avian conservation, and this is also the inspiration of much of the artwork that you'll find from Inkhorn Brewing. You'll see that when we do the Inkhorn release of this beer as well. But the names of many of the beers are different kinds of birds as well, the Japanese names. I think the one that we reviewed from them last time was called Niwa no Tori, if I remember correctly. But when these guys started up, the brewery was equipped with two 5 barrels, 600 litres, and two 10 barrel, 1200 litre tanks, and they've just gradually upscaled their brewing over the last few years. But as of February 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 120 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And again, that number will no doubt increase as time goes on. But yeah, very highly rated brewery, and this is a brewery that I had wanted to include on the channel for quite some time, and we only got to do that for the first time last time I was in Japan, which was Christmas 2023. But yeah, definitely cool to have a good few Inkhorn beers to review for you this time, and if you get the chance to try some of their stuff, I highly recommend that you do. I think we've got quite a few IPAs, so the next time we'll need to have a look at some lagers or stouts or sours or something like that. But yeah, that's everything I can tell you about Inkhorn Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So this one is a half-litre can, and these half-litre cans are becoming more and more popular in Japan, which is great to see. You can see plain silver top on this one, and it does look very, very nice. But yeah, you can see on the side of the can there, West Coast Brewing on the top, Inkhorn Brewing on the bottom, and there's the hop dude just kind of inspecting some plants or looking for birds or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, to tell you about this particular beer, this one is a New England Hazy Imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA. New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, that's what I should say. This one is hopped with Luminosa, Nectaron and Mosaic. And yeah, Nectaron is a hop that we've encountered before, Australian hop if I remember correctly. I think it gives you about 14% alpha acid, and it's big orangey flavours. Mosaic, of course, is one of your these days classic American hops, 14% alpha acid, and it gives you this big kind of tangerine note. But Luminosa is a very new one that I hadn't encountered before. So to tell you a little bit about it, it's got 9 to 12% alpha acid. It's supposed to give you a whole lot of tropical flavours. It was peach, mango, papaya and guava that were listed in the notes from Indie Hops, and then it's also supposed to give you a little bit of an orange peel character as well. So yeah, this should be a really interesting one. I've never encountered Luminosa before, as far as I'm aware. I might have had beers in it where they didn't beers with it that didn't list it as a hop, but still it should be quite interesting. But yeah, Bird of Paradise, 8.5% hazy New England Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka, in collaboration with Inkhorn Brewing in Toshima, Tokyo, Japan. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. If memory serves me correctly, I think I paid about 1,400 yen for this beer, which is like 70 Hong Kong dollars, somewhere in the region of £7 sterling, maybe €8. Yeah, and in Swedish kroner, yeah, it's going to be about 80 Swedish kroner. So craft beer is more expensive in Japan, particularly relative to wages, because Japanese salaries are not good, to be honest with you. But the yen is quite weak just now, which is obviously pushing up prices and things like that for, you know, beers made with pretty much all imported ingredients, German and American, and Czech for the most part. But yeah, anyway, this beer, I have to say, looks very, very nice. So as you can see, this is poured pretty much as you would expect from a New England Hazy. So before the head disappears, we can see that this beer is poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head. It's faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer. on the top of the beer, but you've got a nice kind of thicker foamy ring around the edge of the glass. You can see some medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the beer, and it gets a little bit fluffier the further up that you go. But definitely colour-wise, this one is one of the kind of richer and more kind of slightly ambery leaning New England hazies that I've come across. So for me, I think the colour of this one, I think this is maybe gonna have a little bit of like caramel or carapils or something like that, and it's something just a wee bit more kind of caramelly and chewy, I would say. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, this one looks quite interesting in terms of the level of haze and stuff on this as well. This is definitely one of the soupier and gloopier New England IPAs that I've come across. And remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use as well. So yeah, it does look quite nice, this one, I have to say. But I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. It's pretty much as you would expect from the style, but certainly one of the more kind of yellowy amber colour ones that I've encountered. So yeah, let's go on and take a little look at the aroma of this one then. Let's do this. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is going to be good. You know, West Coast Brewing have a very strong reputation that's well earned. And yeah, I think this beer is just, it comes across very, very nicely. Yeah, for me, this is a big kind of oily. It's a really nice kind of big oily, tropical and orangey leaning New England IPA. This one, the tropical notes I think take a back seat to the kind of orangey side of this beer, which makes sense when you've got nectar on. Mosaic, and apparently the Luminosa hop is going to give you a bit of orange peel as well, so it makes sense. The beer also has a good little bit of sweetness to it from the malt base, and yeah, it just comes across as really nice, kind of oily and juicy. Yeah, so as I've said before, New England IPAs for me can lean a few different ways. You've got 6 things you should think about. You should think about the kind of yeasty, farmhousey character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs in my experience. But then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. For me, this beer demonstrates a good little bit of wheaty character. You can smell that in the malt base. Good little bit of sweetness as well. And yeah, it's kind of interesting from that perspective. But let's break down this aroma and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So for me, the more I smell of it too, I start to get more of the yeasty and oaty side of things. And American wheat, I would say too, is a lot smoother than European wheat. European wheat has a bit more bite to it, and I noticed that when I was over in the States in the summer, trying some of their beers. But yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, you've obviously got some of that nice kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You do get a little tiny hint of like woodiness. There's a wee bit of cracker, but I'm getting a lot of white bread out of this. Lots and lots of white bread at the back of the nose. You're definitely getting a little bit of the wheaty bitiness. You can smell that the beer has a pardon me, a good little bit of thickness and things like that too. So yeah, wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, big kind of thick white bready notes. Big thick white bready notes, bit of wheaty bitiness. And then yeah, the white bread that you get out of this is quite thick, and it's also got a lovely little bit of sweetness to it as well. Yeah, I really do like how this pieces together actually. Yeah, aroma wise, this is absolutely lovely. Yeah, you do get a good little bit of, you can smell the oaty creaminess out of this one, and as I've said before, Oats are always a good measure of how fresh your New England IPA is. The creamier they smell and taste, the fresher the beer is. The drier they smell, the older the beer is. Very crude measure, but tends to kind of hold true. But yeah, within this one as well, you do get some lovely kind of sweetness. There's a little bit of a straight up caramel. There's some Werther's Original, and you've also got a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think is really quite nice. I do really like how this all pieces together. Yeah, malt base is great. On the hoppy side of things then, we should talk, when it comes to hopping in IPAs, you have three different kinds of hoppings you can do. Early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper dank aroma. Late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, gives you a little bit of bitterness and dankness, but mainly a kind of brighter green component. And then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, it only gives you flavour, no bitterness, and that gives you a kind of bright green component. West Coast IPAs tend to use all three, which is why they have more bitterness and deeper, danker aromas. New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. But yeah, this one for me, you can tell you get that lovely kind of bright green component. This does have a little bit of Mosaic Cryo in there as well, which you can smell with it, because the green component comes across as being a little bit more oily. So yeah, definitely getting a lot of that out of this one. And then, yeah, so you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, which will be from the Mosaic. Big, kind of smooth, but still quite bright floral aromaticity. And you've got some lovely zesty, kind of grassy notes coming out of the beer as well, which I do really quite enjoy. So, yeah, interesting stuff. For me, on the fruity side of things, is really nice with this one too. As I say, there's big oily orangey notes in there, which will be the Nectaron, and the Mosaic's going to give you that lighter tangerine note that's in there. You do get a wee bit of the tropical fruit though. I think I can smell the peach coming out of this one quite a little bit, particularly in the top of the nose. Some of the guava's there as well, but I've always found peach and guava to be a bit more pungent in terms of the different tropical fruits. So yeah, I get peach and guava for sure, and then I get lots and lots of orange out of this one. So yeah, really interesting, but I think this is going to be a pretty awesome beer. As I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we try this one. Collaboration reviews always take a little bit longer. But yeah, let's have a look at this one. The West Coast Brewing version of the Bird of Paradise, a collaboration with Inkhorn Brewing, and we'll do the Inkhorn one a little bit later. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kampai. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn solid. Wouldn't expect anything less of these guys though. Yeah, once again, lovely New England double from West Coast Brewing. You know, these guys really know how to do these beers and how to do them well. This is lovely stuff. Big thumbs up to West Coast, and you know, Inkhorn Brewing are very capable from what I've seen so far as well. But yeah, first impression of this one, it is fairly wheaty leaning, but I get a little bit more barley malt out of it in the flavour. And I also get, I don't get quite as much sweetness as I thought there was going to be. And the fruity characters are a little bit more balanced between tropical and orangey. But yeah, this is one of these beers where it does differ quite a wee bit from the from what you expect from the aroma. Some of them kind of follow what you'd expect from the aroma very well. Some of them vary a little bit. I think this one just varies that little bit for me, but still very good beer, this one. So thumbs up to both breweries. Yeah. So let's break this beer down then and describe the flavour for you a wee bit more in depth. We'll start on that middle third of the palate. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely fresh kind of white bready bread crust in there. So that's the backbone of the beer. Further forward, you've got, you do get a little touch of like woodiness in there, and you can feel it does feel that there's a layer of kind of Jacob's cream cracker in that malt base as well, which is good. So yeah, bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Then you can feel that more dense. You can feel that sort of fluffy kind of white bready character there from the barley malt, and then I think above that you're getting the wheaty layer. You can feel that slightly more dense white bread, which will be down to the wheat, and the wheat does actually have that little bit of bite to it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's European wheat that's being used in this one as opposed to American wheat. So that's quite interesting, and you do get a little bit more of wheaty bitiness further back on the palate too. But yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, the barley malt white bread, and then the wheaty white bread above that. Pardon me. Above that, you do get a little bit of oatiness out of this one, but it really is not. This beer for me really is not the most oaty leaning of New England IPAs, but I think that was quite obvious from the aroma. There is definitely a little bit of oat in there, because you can feel in the middle of your palate, above the kind of more dense and bitey white bready layer, you can feel some of the nice kind of smooth oatiness. You've got that lovely kind of creamy oaty character coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of that creamy smooth oaty character. And you can feel in the centre of your palate it's really smooth, but then as you move further out toward the edges of the palate, it just gets that little bit drier. And then in the centre of your palate, you can feel there's a little circle there where you've got a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type flavour to the beer as well. So yeah, I really do like how that pieces together in this one as well. That gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. So, where do we go from there? Yeah, the malt, I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty side of this beer. The only other thing I would add is that maybe just as you move out from that little circle, so you got that little caramelly bit in the centre of your palate, which is the alcohol, of course. As you move further out from that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of Werther's Original flavour. And then you've got a wee bit of kind of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit in there as well, and all of that sits on top of the oaty layer. But yeah, I think the way that goes together is really nice. So big thumbs up from me. Yeah, on the on the malty side of things, and that middle third of the palate, I think that's everything we need to say. So let's go to the back third of the palate then. The border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the more barley malt bread in there, then the more wheaty bitey white bread. You can feel the more wheaty bitey white bread sitting above that, which is good. You do get that little bit of bite there, and as I often say, on the back third of your palate you get similar flavours, but they just come across a little bit more dry and things like that. So you can feel that the fresh white bready bread crust is there, but just a little bit drier and more, a little bit of bite to it. You can feel the white bready layer is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got the wheaty layer in there, which again is a little bit lighter, more airy, and just has a wee bit more bite, and you can feel some of the more bitey aspects of the wheat just sitting on top of that back third of the palate. And you've got some really nice yeasty characters coming out of this one too. So yeah, with a yeasty layer in this one. Yeah, with the yeasty layer in this one, you can feel there's a really nice the yeasty, the yeasty character just sits on top of that back third of the palate, so you can feel in the centre it's got a little bit more of a kind of dry white bready character. Around the edge you've got a wee bit of a brown bready layer, and it's almost like a little bit kind of spicy bread crust forming the kind of outside of that yeasty side of the beer. But definitely the yeast sits on top of everything else on the back third of the palate, and you can feel the flavour is taller the further back that you go. Then as you move further into the middle of your palate, you can feel that the flavour just kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. So yeah, I do like how that kind of pieces together in this one. Yeah, the malty and yeasty side of the beer is good, but let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So green component first. Back corners of the palate, you do get a really nice little bit of earthiness coming out of the beer. So yeah, you've got the earthiness there, and as you move further forward, you can feel there's a little bit of herbal character, but you start to get this really oily, quite spicy floral note out of this one. That's the cryo oil. I'm also noticing that on the top of the middle third of the palate, I'm getting a wee bit of a type kind of skittle type flavour actually, which is interesting. It also reminds me of this kind of flavour you get from the Fantas in Japan, the grape and the melon Fantas. I'm getting a wee bit of that. But yeah, as you move further forward along the sides of your palate there, you get more and more kind of floral bitterness and things like that, which is quite nice. So yeah, nice kind of floral bitterness coming out of the beer. And yeah, it just has a little bit of that spice the further forward that you go. Yeah, so nice floral aromaticity there, round the front curve of the tongue. It's a little bit lighter and more grassy, but as I say, the green component in this beer does have a nice, it has a good little bit of wetness to it, which I think is great. So yeah, nice floral aromaticity, a little bit spicy, and then a kind of zesty grassiness around the kind of front curve of your tongue. But let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get a nice little bit of that bready build-up. Soft white bread in the base, a little bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness on top. Then the base of that the base of that front third of your palate, you've got the bread crust again, the white bread, and then a little bit of the wheaty character. Then above all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and that's really good. So the fruity side of the beer for me, it's kind of what, yeah, I'd say it's kind of what, the more I drink of the beer, the more I would be inclined to say that it's kind of what I would have expected from the aroma. It wasn't initially, as I said earlier, but yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's definitely, you get some of the tropical notes in there. I do get that kind of stronger guava, and I've always found guava to be quite ripe and pungent. I'm definitely getting peach. The peach is there. So yeah, the peach is there. The guava, as you move further, you get that sharper peach. Then the guava, as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, yeah, the guava comes out of this one quite well. And then as you move further forward from that, you get the as you move further forward from that, you go into the front half of that front third of your the front half of that front third of your tongue, and it's all about the orange. You can feel the more kind of pungent orange underneath from the nectaron, and the kind of lighter tangerine from the mosaic sitting on top of that. But yeah, it's actually, I almost get like a little bit of quite a powerful lime just behind the kind of front tip of the tongue too. It's really citrusy, this beer. The more that you drink of it, the more citrusy it becomes. Yeah, That's really nice, that. I wonder if I'm drinking this beer just slightly too fresh, because I do get a little bit of there's a wee touch of green to this one. As I've often said, you need to let New England IPAs just settle for a little bit in the can to get the best flavour out of them. I think I'm maybe drinking this one just slightly too fresh, because I've got a feeling it would just mellow out and be that little bit more juicy and things like that. But that said, this may well just be a slightly more bitter and more wheaty leaning New England IPA. But as good as it is, I think maybe just letting it mellow out for another week or two in the can might have been an idea though. So yeah, this is quite this is an interesting one. This is a really citrusy, orangey leaning at New England IPA with a good bit of wheaty bite and also some nice big kind of floral notes as well. So yeah, interesting stuff. I really do like how all of this kind of pieces together. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour side of things. Let's just round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. Yeah, so mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer, it's kind of top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation has a little bit of a prickle to it, which is nice. It feels very, very clean, and you often find that with the West Coast brewing beers. You know, the Fuji waters. It's obviously very, very good quality, and I think it feels very clean. But in Japan, as I've said many a time, they want their beers to be drinkable. In terms of the IBUs in this one, I want to say that this beer has a little bit more bitterness to it. I think this has got 50, maybe 60 IBUs at a push, but it does just feel that little bit more bitter. Again, it could be because the beer is quite young, quite fresh. It would maybe mellow out more. But the malt base, as we say, has a bit of graininess underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of kind of sweetness on top. Then you've got the lovely fruity characters on this one. Good little bit of tropical note, but quite orangey. And I think very, very citrusy leaning. But all in all, lovely beer, this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. And I wouldn't expect any less of West Coast Brewing or Inkhorn Brewing. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Bird of Paradise, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This is the version brewed at West Coast Brewing, and it's in collaboration with Inkhorn Brewing, and we're going to have a little look at the Inkhorn Brewing one, which I believe has a different hop profile and things. I think it's got Nelson Sauvignon and things like that in it too. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that one whenever it appears. We'll see how we go. But thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both West Coast Brewing and Inkhorn Brewing, and you'll see both of these breweries on the channel again in the very near future, I'm sure. But until then, Sláinte, Skål, cheers, Kampai, and I'll catch you guys again very, very soon. Ciao just now.